Так, уважаемые коллеги, есть предложение начать нашу секцию. Часть
Dear colleagues, we are starting our session. Some participants will join us within 10 minutes. Thank you for being part of this session. We will discuss national project of unmanned aircraft systems. We have to say that this year and last year's situation sped up this development of unmanned aircraft systems, and President of Russia made a decision to develop this area. And we will discuss the prospects of 10 years future. We have major tasks ahead. We have to create this industry from scratch. We have to substitute imports and to solve numerous issues with the use of aerial space by manned and unmanned aircrafts, both civil aviation and UAVs. One of directions of this work is regional. The decision was made to create national regional centers, including Bashkortostan, the Republic of Bashkortostan. We have experimental legal regimes, and we will have similar regimes in other regions. And today we would like to discuss some key points of development in this field of unmanned aerial vehicles in the context of projects that can be developed in different regions of Russia. And we hope that we will come up with some interesting ideas. We will draw some important conclusions. Today we have Anton Tkachov, the Deputy of State Duma, the first Deputy of Information Technology Committee. Also, we expect people from the regional government of the Republic of Bashkortostan, and we will have colleagues from Ryazan region, the deputy chairman of the government of the Ryazan region. They also have major project in their territory in the field of R&D, Aerospace Innovation Valley. We have the CEO, and the Director General is also with us. And this is major work being done, and we would like to highlight certain points and to realize what lines of cooperation will be needed. First of all, regarding a few words about legal aspects, I invite our first speaker, Anton. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm very pleased that the Republic of Bashkortostan holds this kind of event, and the more regional events we have, the more drones we will have, the longer distance drones we will be using, and this will be trend setting. We won't follow someone, but we will become the trend setters. Very recently about unmanned systems. Currently, we have they are as popular as artificial intelligence. And we understand where we have some when we have some missing points, deficits, and due to sanctions imposed on us, as our president and government said, these sanctions became stimulus for us, and we benefited from these sanctions to some extent. And the government and president approved the first national program And now we are laying the foundations, creating the basis for work that will be done in during 5-10 years. We have about 70 enterprises currently working with jet or helicopter type drones, and but for 50 out of 70 enterprises are only making assembly. So there is no full cycle. Like when we create helicopters from the very scratch to final ready-made product, only 20 companies are having full cycle manufacturing. But they buy this assembly from lines from China, from Singapore, and these logistics chains have transformed due to sanctions. And also we have created this kind of approach to creating unmanned aerial vehicles. It was cheaper for us to buy than produce and certify. It seemed to be not profitable. Therefore, we blocked this technology development for ourselves in the past. There are some major companies that are making investments, Aramax, Geoscan. They are constantly making investments, stimulating this market. And what I would like to start with as the representative of legislative body of the State Duma, I think we will have working group task force in State Duma, because these drones can also bring some threat and also some development potential. And this is one of our priorities in terms of development. We have to create rules. Why? Because in Ufa, in Bashkortostan, we have experimental legal regime for unmanned systems, but these we have only 10% of Russian territory covered with this regime, and in other areas of Russia are closed for unmanned drones. But the potential is huge. Agriculture, law enforcement structures, geodesics, we could benefit from using drones in these areas. The second issue is the lack of, as Belosov, our vice president, mentioned, lack of cooperation. We have some companies operating, producing full cycle assembly, but there are no connection between companies, and some parts and components could be exchanged, and they could save some money, but thanks to Aerospace Valley and development institutions, we are working to create these opportunities. Market localization, drone market localization reaches 30% according to official data, but in practice it's about 10%. Given the parts and components and units. Also, the Postal Service of Russia had not very successful experience with drone. They tried to use drones to deliver postal. When the calculations were made, the cost of this delivery, given the infrastructure, the cost of a drone, the operator's work, insurance, it turned out that it would be cheaper to use a regular helicopter than a drone. And this lacking a full cycle infrastructure is one of our weaknesses. I wouldn't say that we fail in this respect, but we have to work on that. The third issue is the safety rules for operating drones, and the fourth is the workforce. We have shortage of workforce. Several times I visited our area of special military operation, and we see deficit of military staff that could operate these drones. They need people to operate these drones, not only to raise this drone and to navigate it somehow, but also to drop some grenade, to drop some weapons. And these are core issues. And our institutions, our specialized institutes, universities are teaching, educating these specialists. And these educational centers should grow in number by the 2030 up to 500 institutions to grow specialists for this industry. The first task that could help us is the long-term demand. We have to create long-term demand for these systems. And first of all, these are public procurement contracts. And we can only do that using budgetary funds. And we should not use it to assemble some Chinese components and units or some other friendly countries, components from other friendly countries. We have to maximally localize the production of parts and components. Understandably, it's crucial for us. It's essential to because the market is not open. We cannot buy anything from global markets freely. Regarding state procurement, the amount is about 4 billion rubles, and 2.6 these are a federal budget, and the rest is regional budgets. And over 3 years, we have to produce about 240,000 all types of drones. And by 2030, this number should grow to 600,000 drones, all kinds of drones. And the major customers would be the emergency ministry, Gazprom Neft, the Russian railroads, and other major companies that could use these unmanned aerial systems. And the first step is to create the qualified basic consumer customer, whether some company, organization created by ministry. And the next, we have to develop the market for the use of these drones. And we hope that business, commercial sector will join these efforts, including delivery, geodesics, prospecting, where we could use artificial intelligence for prospecting. And this should become more understandable for people so that people wouldn't be scared. And we have to develop business models. And over 3 years, we have to build this chain, to create this chain so that we could create the potential for 50 years of development. And we have to create a chain of operators, professional operators like pilots. And for this purpose, we create university-based development institutions. And the key thing, what is always neglected, is the insurance opportunities. Today, if you approach some insurance company and ask that I want to get insurance policy for my copter, you will end up with some not very unfavorable conditions for your company, because the chances for falling are quite high. and financial institutions and government and central bank should figure out how we can use, what mechanisms we could use. Leasing mechanism is probably, the interest rate would be different if we talk about drones and high risks. If we do not have this loan cheap money, the insurance will be very expensive. And there are chances that the development of this market will be impeded. By 2030, we have to have 290 specialized sites and airports and drone ports. These are few right now. These are few specialized drone ports. And now we use conventional airports. And this is another task set by our government. So we have to create infrastructure for development, for education, for training of drone operators. Even though we produce a lot of drones right now, and mostly we use them for our military operation, but the benefits of these drones can be obvious for peaceful purposes. But right now we are not talking about it. And it would be great to implement these systems for people working in Arctic region, when the temperature is 30 degrees below. We have drones that can be operated in this range of temperatures. For a long time, it was believed that it's better, it's easier to buy ready-made products to avoid certification, and we created this obstacle ourselves. And therefore, there was no mass production of 204 Il-96 because they were very noisy, and we were trying to be part of global aviation, and we stopped producing these noisy aircrafts. If we would continue developing this market, maybe now we would have a much more favorable situation in this field. And I would like to summarize my speech. And not only problems are there, we have things to ponder about, and we have to discuss these things as much as possible so that government authorities would hear our ideas, our opinions. And the second thing, when we create legislation, we should remember about the safety issues. This is major issue regarding the radio suppression mechanisms. And we had discussions about data center with our specialized institutions, the amount of information our law enforcement structures are processing, Ministry of Emergency. What if there is drone? If drone is attacking them, is there any active defense? And the answer was there is no active defense. And when we tried to, well, maybe we should not delve further into this sensitive issue. Well, we can talk about it freely. Everyone understands it. The issues of safety should be discussed, and we have to come up with rules. Our law enforcement structures should develop these rules. Thank you.
So there are some additional comments. We'll return to them. And from my side, I would like to say that to highlight some things. Here we have our colleagues from the Ryazan Oblast, Deputy Prime Minister of the Oblast government, because on the territory of this oblast there's a project development of Ilysan, are you with me? Do you hear me? So, good afternoon. afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity to make my speech. It's a very important subject. Development of unmanned air system is a very important subject, and the administration of the country has put very important tasks in front of us, and the Ryazan Oblast, as many other subjects of the Russian Federation, actually participate in this work. According to the initiative of our government, the initiative was supported by the President of the Russian Federation. We have a project of creation of an innovative valley, and we are included in a number of the scientific and research centers specialized in unmanned vehicles, and we made a lot of work in training the necessary staff, and we have some important competences, including concerning the creation of unmanned air vehicles and taking into account the work done before. So we also deal with the fabrication of components, including for the drones. Our leading universities participate in this work. The Russian Technical University, our Ryazan Radio Technical University, and some others. And we have many subjects for joint works. Like in Bashkortostan, we have landing zones which are not really load charged, and the use of drones will enable to start a new life over there, including for the unmanned air vehicles of different classes. We see the important role of an interaction of our valley with the major players like the United Aircraft Building Industry, different investment funds, the consumers of different foundations, and this cooperation will allow us to develop different projects, and one of the major directions is the creation of transport systems, and that is why it is necessary to take into consideration the real needs of the market to determine these priorities, and only the interaction with the major logistics company and the analysis of demand and predictions of development in these segments will permit us to move forwards in the development of unmanned air vehicles. Today we'll speak a lot about our potential in the development of this direction. That is why we invite all the interested participants to participate in the cooperation with the Ryazan Oblast and with our Aerospace Innovation Valley. Thank you. Thank you, Yulia Alexandrovna. So we discuss the problems of interaction with the Republic of Bashkortostan, and we do hope that we'll be able to build the right model of cooperation between the regions in order to implement projects which will respond to many of the problems in front of us. I would like to get back to the speech of Anton Olegovich. There were issues related to legal regulations, and the issues, the problems related to the figures will be changing in the future, because now the projects on the federal level has also started to be established, and so rather serial monetary resources will be provided. So, but the amount will be comparable with the major national projects being implemented right now. Yes, there was a meeting or working group for these projects, and much attention was paid to the agricultural drones. We know that here in Balkotostan, people also interested in the development of this direction, and it is necessary to establish certain positions on the legal level, that everything which is lower than 10 meters is not flying, it's moving on the ground. And it is very important for the zones where the manned aircraft are used. And in general, it seems that taking into account the importance of this direction and the importance of the system using the super low heights, it will be useful to take such vehicles out of the competence of Russian aviation authorities. So our colleagues, they are quite inspired with this approach, and I think that the State Duma should express its opinion on the subject. I would also like to add that the issues with security exist, but it is not systematized in the scale of the country. If we need to make the flying zone secure, the first thing will be the question of security. Then there's a question of development. There are special legal regimes, and within this framework, all these unmanned systems should be developed, especially for the regions where these zones do not exist. If you mentioned the height of 10 meters, it is the fundamental task of safety and security. I would like to say that the experimental legal regime has a certain validity period, and then it should be regulated on the legal level. Nevertheless, this could be one of the results of moreover, we have a lot of cases of the kind all over the country. Yes, we discussed it from the point of view of the Republic and how it is developed here. Do you have any questions to Anton Olegovich or concerning the issues he tackled in his speech? If not, we are ready to go ahead. So I think, I do hope that you'll have them afterwards. Together with us, we have a representative of one of the companies which is dealing with the development of unmanned systems. There are several of them. This is the Calibri company, Mr. Firsov, the chief design engineer of this company. Are you with us? Dear colleagues, can you put on the presentation? Thank you for the opportunity to tell about the production of such unmanned air vehicles. So, nevertheless, if we have now problems with the unmanned systems, I would like to speak about these issues in depth. I have only 7 minutes, so I'll speak about it rapidly. First slide, please.
Коллеги, меня просьба презентацию вывести, может быть, Леонид...
So, colleagues, could you switch on the presentation? On the one part, we have a problem that now from the 1st of January, a great step ahead was done for the unmanned vehicles with a weight of more than 30 kilos. Now we are preparing the documents for certification of the first unmanned prototype drones. What does it mean? On the one part, we have a subject of our work, but on the other part, there is quite a big barrier on the way we work. Certainly, because it creates problem for other aircraft building companies.
Еще следующее — это содержание.
So this is the content. And next slide, please.
Значит, что у нас с оказанием услуг?
So about the service provision. So the drones with a mass more than 30 kilos can legally fly only in special zones. The drones under 30 kilos may fly in various zones.
30 килограмм. Почему это так важно?
Why this 30 kilos is a very important threshold? Because many important issues related to deliveries,
Больше 30 килограмм.
they are related to these drones over 30 kilos. And so these drones have to be certified. And to be able to have this certified aircraft, we need to train pilots. There are rules. So Bus 200 was the first. So it have its certificate. It won't be extended for other fields. It's important that there is a first prototype, but not all design bureaus can repeat such experience. So unfortunately, those who had no experience or work in aviation, they need to be trained, they need to explain these approaches, because it's very important. So the conclusion from this slide, a serious approach can be based only on certified aircraft. Despite the issue of their price. Next slide, please. So there's a problem of training of the flight personnel, because we need to train not only those who fly, but also those who control the aircraft. And it's part of the certification procedure for the type certificate. Now, much attention is paid to this problem. There are specially selected panels on this subject, because especially in unmanned aviation, the probability of an emergency situation is much higher than in manned aviation. Because if a pilot of an aircraft can rely on his own perception, so the operator doesn't have this possibility. So what are the problems with the training? There are people. There is a program for training with 6 approaches to it. It can be, they can train using simulators. What are the problems? The problems that we need to establish a certain order over there, because what course should be followed, what course is acceptable to begin a commercial use of the aircraft. Because the training course developed by the developers of the aircraft, they could be delivered to the people, to the trainees. And so this could be a kind of a supplementary training with a basic program being followed in the colleges and universities. Components for the drones. So many Russian companies manufacture components, but they don't cover all the components needed for a drone. Unfortunately, from the point of view of certification, this situation is very interesting, and it is worse than this, because when you certify an aircraft,
комплектующих изделий.
you have an issue with modification of, if you bring a motor from AliExpress, you need to like a basic model. So, and there is a procedure like in the big aviation, and if we make all the small design bureaus follow this procedure, we'll have a lot of problems. That is why we need to invent an intelligent solution,
Где происходит
and
компоненты в помощь всем другим.
our design bureau can be one of the centers to promote the necessary
То есть
rules. Because for some components, the procedure could be different than the general circuit, because it could involve a so-called certification credit, which could be used depending on the type of the drone. So we see that using the component, we have very serious problems
импортозависимость.
because the dependence on import is very big. And so we have 3 to 6 types of motors, and some motors could be blocked on the frontier. It's an important problem, and my assessment that our possibilities cover not more than 2% of the market.
Следующий слайд, пожалуйста.
And the market itself is very big.
И, соответственно,
Certification, production, and materials.
вещей, которые
Speaking about some special things related to an airplane. So it, in principle, the planer and the certification, if some components could be common,
условно каждая компания
so then there are components when each company starts everything from scratch.
отличается от
And in this for this kind of problem, so the drones, they do not differ from big aircraft,
для всех компаний. Но, с другой стороны, безопасность
because security comes first. If
дается на электрические пилотируемые самолеты.
for electric aviation,
В реале у нас
we have a certificate which is
порядка не до
valid for a certain period. For drones, this period is not as long.
полетов, да,
And we have an extremely low level of safe use of the drones.
не себе, ну, не окружающей среде, да, только идут только финансовые потери, да, то есть это
And it also related to the fact that when a drone is destroyed, so it means only financial losses, but not the damage for the environment and people.
должно быть проделано.
And it's an important work, and it should be done. What else I would like to emphasize?
Попытки
Despite all the efforts to consider drones as a separate
к сожалению,
aircraft field, so
это все равно, что большой самолет.
even a small drone, it's the same aircraft as a big airplane, but only with its dimensions less than for a big plane.
Вот этих процедур сертификации.
And especially after implementation of all these procedures. So, okay, I'm finishing.
Что большинство тех работ, которые не идут,
So the major part of the works which was done, so before cannot be applied, so many works has to be restarted.
тем приемом, чем вот все-таки
And so we need to establish the criteria, what are the differences between the big aviation and the small aviation.
требует сертификации.
And so the stable business can be built only on the certified aviation technique. The program of training of pilots is part of the certification process for the aircraft. The market of components is much wider than the market for drones, and a drone is like a big airplane, but not as big.
Если где-то можно физически делать, это как
So the first possibility to do this is just to restrict their fields of use and the zones of use. And in this case, we can follow the foreign approach.
идет революция, переход на новые принципы.
But in general, so it's kind of a revolutionary process, and we need to pass from the old approaches to the new approaches, and it should be related to the equipment fabricated. Okay, thank you very much. Finished. Thank you very much for your speech and your interesting position. I would like to add that regardless of the speakers, design engineers, representatives of regional authorities, those who use these aircraft. So there's one main question: how to use the flying zone in the right way, how to make it safe and secure. And in the first place, many people speak about these positions, about the length of service. So we need to have 1 million hours without accidents to be able to certify it. And certainly the development of information technologies and the approach that exists, so they are still young, even if the work has started several years ago. Because let's look at what has happened since the first flight of Brothers Wright.
Пилот доживал там до классического налета выпускника.
Because before, so the 200 hours of flights was already an achievement. So we understand that this technology is being developed and is being developed in a more dynamic way than in the beginning of the century, and the question of use of the airspace.
Такая практика тоже есть, там на относительно небольшой высоте, что меньше.
So if we speak about the use of drones on the low height, at a low height, so we also do not want this drone to come to our forehead. And we understand that there are problems with birds at these heights. So there is this security issue. But this drone flies at some 10 meters. So it's very, very probable that we will never meet with this. So the percentage of risk is really low. And I would like to share their experience, our colleagues from the company Flight Drone, because they deal with a system of control in the experimental area, and they want to speak about their digital innovation in terms of control of the traffic flight. Colleagues? Good afternoon, colleagues. I will tell you without presentation. I will be based on the security of flights. Our first speaker, our colleague from the State Duma, has spoken about. Yesterday, I told about this to Dmitry Medvedev in Skolkovo, and I had an opportunity to speak about this with the representatives of the Security Council. Here will be based on the first thing, and that right now There's no region except for St. Petersburg and Moscow. There's no such a system of surveillance which could enable seeing air vehicles at low heights and closing the sky, according to the expert, doesn't guarantee 100% security. We understand that the most secure drone is the one which doesn't fly and standing on land. But that will not allow solving the problems named by the president in his speech. The problem also concerned the use of the unmanned air systems. Yesterday we spoke about it with Dmitry Medvedev. We spoke about the thing that the unmanned systems is a new type of aircraft, and neural networks and artificial intelligence, meaning that the aircraft is unmanned and it is directly related to the environment around it. If our colleagues from the regions need to open the sky, we need to make some steps. We need to identify the system friend of O, and this should be done by the local regional authorities, which can establish difference between a trustful drone or non-trustful drone, and it should take into account all the legal procedures related to the use of a drone. And it should also enable tracking of the these procedures. And so the friendly drone has to pass certification registration and should be ready for flight. If now we close the sky, so we landed the honest, wide commercial business. We do not have as many drone fleet in Russia, so we need to introduce new forms of surveillance from the cellular operators who, using their experience, including in Bashkortostan, and only the use of surveillance technology, only the use of technologies of receiving information from the drone operators would enable us to begin the aggregating process. It doesn't concern the finalizing procedures. So the important condition is the technical parameters and the technical state of the drone. I agree with my colleagues who produce agricultural drones. It is important because the flight of an agricultural drone is limited with the limits of the field, but it is a flying device, and we should try to transfer some certification functions to the road authorities, to some other authorities, but I think that the concept that everything that fly is controlled by Russian aviation authorities is the right concept. And the drone which flies at the height of 10 meters, technically it could fly at 300 meters and 500 meters, and technically it's the use of the airspace. And we need to change the legislation in terms of the use of the airspace, and we should build a risk-oriented model, because the main flights declared for agricultural drones, we can technologically and legally show to how this risk-oriented model works for the flights. And speaking about the heavy drones like Buzz 200. With the number of restrictions, we think that these machines has to gain experience. The economy, as my colleague from the State Duma said, is not the one we would like to have, but there's no wide-scale production. The infrastructure has not been created, and the cost of first flights could not be cheap in comparison with the mass market. I think that any drone manufactured and any aircraft in general, Boeing, Airbus, in the beginning, the cost of a flight hour was really high because all the expenses incurred were taken into account. That is why the flight hour has to be subsidized and returned back to the flight organization. On the next week, we plan to organize some workshops, separate workshops with all the regions to tell about the system, which could make the use of the airspace more secure and to arm the regions with the tools. And Bashkortostan, like their colleagues from the operative headquarters, will speak with them about the risk-oriented model in terms of the use of the airspace for the agricultural drones. We'll start the flights with Buzz 200 and we'll show how it works. We'll test the digital contract at our marketplace, because if we speak about the market development, because it is needed not only for the fabrication of the drone system, but also for selling the services, because the big companies, because we shared our financial models and the contracts that we have already. So these companies, they do not want to operate the drones. They need to buy a service, and they are ready to pay for this service using the 3D maps and photo plans. And the digitalization of the basis of the use of the drones has to increase the transparency of the process. I told about this to the president of Russia. I told him about the work of our system. I told about it to Dmitry Medvedev. And the first part, there are several components which will enable the regions to see how that this is the contracted drone, this is the, it belongs to, or it is rented by an agricultural enterprise, and there is a flight plan linked to this flight. All this enables the transparency in the use of drones. It's understandable that it is very expensive to use the heavy radars, and it will be discussed within the framework of the national project. But in principle, the most part of the problem of the territory can be covered with the cellular network, which will do in the example of Bashkortostan. So we spoke about the special flight zones, why there's so, why the number of these zones is not very big. Because it's very difficult to register these special zones, because if you do not have enough administrative resources to fight for your right to have such zone, it will be very difficult to implement the zone. So the Ministry of Economy has also a very positive attitude to solving this problem, but not the other ministries. That is why it is so difficult to have a special flight zone for a limited liability company or a small enterprise, because it will be impossible for this enterprise to register it through the state system. That is why it is very good that Bashkortostan managed to create such a special zone, and we think that using this example we can prove to the operative headquarters that it is possible and it is safe and secure, and that our workshops for the regions, for the head of the regional authorities, will help us to open the sky step by step. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your informative talk, and I would like to point out a few moments that we've heard. An interesting idea was about that we landed all the legal uses of drones, and there is an analogy with another field, the civil weapons among civilians. All the issues that occurred some time ago, these are very similar issues. What requirements, what length of the barrel, and other technical details. But if we look at statistical data, people who are legally owning weapons, they are much less likely to commit a crime because they are registered and they are at risk of losing their weapons. If they commit some misdemeanor, some minor thing. And there is also databases about weapons, threaded weapons, and so on and so forth. And we were closely studying this issue, and Rosguard, our colleagues from Rosguard told us that this is really important. And about the statistics of discoveries of crimes using the base of bullet cases, 0% of crime. So if there is zero efficiency of using databases of bullet cases, then maybe we should not rely upon it. So we have to think about regulation, why we do something, and the issue of drones is very similar. If you have 2 kilos drone which fell, or something bigger, much bigger fell. So you have to avoid exaggerations. You have to avoid extremes. Heavy drones should not be operated in uncontrollable way, and you should not control super small drones at higher altitudes. But this is the issue of collective reason. Given all this, we would like to ask Marsaminov, the head of Strategical Development Center, and we would like him to share his views of this problem, how the region is dealing with these problems, and what initiatives they have to regulate, to develop these technologies. Thank you, Konstantin. Thank you for this opportunity to present my standpoint. I welcome all the participants of this forum. It should be noted that experimental legal regime in our republic was implemented as part of breakthrough project development of UAV, unmanned aviation. This legal regime was developed long ago, and federal government supported our regional government. And this year, there was a governmental decree that lifted all the restrictions for flights of drones weighing over 30 kilograms. And our republic is the only region in the RF which is able to do that. Regarding the lift of these restrictions are still there, but there are some more flexible restrictions. And we are at the Center for Strategical Developments. We operate this project together with some of our colleagues, and we create this unified window for first, number one, certification of devices for flight. We use the accelerated process, fast-track process of certification. Traditional scheme for flight requires up to 1 week to get this right to make flights. If we have experimental legal regimen, we use fly drone system, and this will take 24 hours, and it will promote commercial use of drones, the formation of market of unmanned aerial vehicles, and the participants of our market could operate these commercial flights. Also, we can do it cheaper, and we can reduce our costs in agriculture, in forestry, in freight sector. And I'd like to mention that our experimental legal regimen is not regulating everything. We are just regulating these 4 directions that I have just mentioned. Another thing, this monitoring of linear objects. This is the 4th direction. Currently, our legal regimen, experimental legal regimen, incorporates new participants. We are compiling relevant issues given the challenges that we have and restrictions imposed on us. And earlier this year, there was a decree of the head of the Republic, and the flights were restricted, excluding these experimental legal regime flights. We are part of this operative headquarters, and we are now coordinating our efforts in this field. And also, I would like to briefly note that to support the previous speakers, this experimental legal regimen is not aimed at giving us the opportunity of 3 years flights, non-restricted flights with uncertain future prospects. Our key goal is we have to create methodology, the legal acts that would promote development of commercial use of UAVs. Thank you. I made my best. I did my best to be brief. Thank you so much. Your experience is really interesting. On our part, as aerospace innovative valley over the Ryazan region, it would be very interesting to exchange experience, to share experience with you. Maybe we could have some close discussions, because some issues can only be discussed. This is the reason why we are here today. Well, we really look forward to it, and we hope that this experimental legal regimen would attract all the interested parties to establish interactions and to develop the mechanism that would let us eliminate major problems, not all problems, but major problems. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, we have here Director General of Unmanned Aviation Systems, Limited Liability Company, Barachenko Alexei, and this company is working on development of unmanned aviation systems and operation of these systems. Alexei, are you with us?
Я думаю, что Алексей Павлович к нам подключится тогда чуть позже. Надеемся на это. А,
I hope he will join us later. Then, then a general director of aviation technologies and companies, complexes company. Hello, can you hear me? Yes, we hear you. Dear colleagues, we would like to present one of our projects that we have been developing with the Center for Strategic Developments in the Republic of Bashkortostan. We create the assembly, production, and testing of UAVs in Bashkortostan. We have our presentation, and if there is technical opportunity, we can run this presentation. And I would like to focus on some other aspects as well. The previous speakers have already touched upon these aspects. First of all, we would like to share our experience of manufacturing cooperation and interaction not only on the regional areas, not only between regions, but also between countries, between Belarus, the Republic of Belarus and Russia. The second thing I would like to tell you about our own products and implementation of those products for mass production and mass use. And the third, and also to share our experience of certification procedures. Very briefly, our company develops not only unmanned aviation systems, but also other products, unmanned vehicles for monitoring missions. But I was asked to focus on agro drones, given given the wide range of speakers. I won't describe it in detail. This agro drone, this is our own development, and we have been implementing it for mass production since. And we have ambitious plans on development and industrial cooperation for production of this kind of drones. And slide number 8, I would like to skip slides. I agree that despite the fact that these are fully domestic developments, starting with design, documentation, and up to software, it really proves that simple thing, that we use a wide range of imported components, and also wide range of components that we have to outsource, including foreign countries, because this is much cheaper than our own production, manufacturing it here. And we want this product to be competitive on the market, given the analogous products available. The product itself, I briefly presented it to you, but also I would like to talk about technical and economical opportunities and feasibilities. Today, in addition to development and implementation of this product, we are testing it under the auspices of institutes that work in the agrochemical industry. There are about 30 institutes of National Academy of Sciences and one institute of plant protection for plants, which assesses the benefits of agro drones for plants. Over the last 2 years, we had tests that showed that this is very efficient technology. Not only agro drone, agro-drones, but the efficiency of agro-drones in general, economic efficiency and technical. This is not international or Chinese or Brazilian experience. This is our national experience, which gives us particular figures. And these figures are compelling evidence of the efficiency of this technique for our regional governments and for investments. Slide 11 and 12, this is our experience with the use of this drone. These are our certificates, the patents that confirm that these are not replicas, but these are our original developments, our national developments, which we should promote to use it in our industries. And regarding cooperation, slide number 15, this is a manufacturing site in the territory of Bashkortostan. I thank my colleagues from Bashkortostan. We are happy to be part of this project on creating this cluster, and we are happy to delegate our competences, certification, production competences. And this slide tells you about experimental legal regimen. And I would like to draw your attention to this fact. In Belarus, in our Republic of Belarus, both intuitively and due to lack of federal participation, we have created this agro-industrial complex. We have presidential decree that allows us using these drones as aviation models, and even without some certification. We do have these issues with certification in Belarus, and we know about these difficulties in Russia. And this narrow path of using our drones allowed us allowed us to use it in practice. If you have questions, I could answer in details. You don't have to register agro drones. You don't need special training for operator, but you have to follow the rules of avian modeling, and the implementation is much more effective. And in summary, I think that the goal of using agro drones and the aim of this special regimen is not only testing the technique and creating some basis, but any special zone is aimed at investment and economy. We have to show that the use of this technique not only gives us beautiful picture of nice flight, but it is really helpful, economically beneficial, and we can prove these benefits to our Republican authorities. And not only regulating authorities can be part of this process, but also we can attract finances from investing companies, from major production companies, and we can promote it much more effectively. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. It's really interesting talk, and we regularly hear about the practice from Belarus, the Republic of Belarus, how manufacturers and operators of drones work together, especially in agricultural center. They are flying at low heights, and we do envy in a good sense, and we hope that we will have similar regulation, that it will be once it will be possible here in Russia, and we can legalize the use of agro-drones here in Russia. And those lines of directions that were mentioned here, both at the federal level and at the agro-drones, everything used for all drones for monitoring, for flights. But what the picture that we see now is that everything that is related to agriculture, it has there are some interested parties, some customers, and we see the economic side of this process. Economical aspects are really important in terms of safety, of security of our state, and it can be used in various areas of our life. Earlier we heard about cinema industry, and we understand that these drones can be used in cinema industry as well. What else? While we see the occurring initiatives, lots of participants of this process, they focus on drones that could be used for monitoring. It's kind of distant probing, and we could use UAVs for this. Emergency ministry could use it, border security services, and environmental services could also use these products. And people who announce high volume of drone production, it seems that we do not need that amount of drones, that many drones. Well, if you have your standpoint, we can give you the floor. And we have a couple more speakers. And after that, we would like to get feedback from you as one of our target, because you are target audience for us. And what is needed in your area of activity, what drones could be used for in your area. We have Director General of Aerospace Innovative Valley, and many speakers today, I would like to thank them. They mentioned this instrument. This is some kind of advertisement.
Please tell us about. Thank you for giving me the floor. Please put on the presentation, colleagues. Yes, please switch on the presentation. Aerospace Innovation Valley, its main fields of activities are. Next slide, please. So the initiators of the project have the Moscow Aviation Institute and the government of the Ryazan Oblast and the RF government. We work under the Federal Law 216, which regulates the activities of all the scientific and research centers in Russia. So among our partners, we have the Ryazan Radio-Technical University and the Ryazan State Medical University. Our main field of activity is building the cooperation chains with private companies, with federal companies, with the interested entities. Our main technical directions are aerospace, IT, radio, electronics, and at present time, so we were opened officially on the 28th of February. We have 22 residents, active companies. What we suggest? We suggest tax advantages. We have a special department which selects the most relevant support measures for the participants of our projects and deals with its implementation and support. Maybe grants, subsidies, and other programs. So we actively work with private venture foundations. What else? thank you, our colleagues, for your hospitality. So the center of attraction of the project is a priority, one of our priorities. So if we move together and if we discuss in details the possibilities to unite our efforts and to share our experience of work with the residents, and also to share technological solutions. So I told about the fields of activities. The projects can follow the airspace track and can have a separate nature, like radio electronics. So if we have several tracks, it's an advantage. If you have to enter the projects, you need to file an applications. The Scientific and Research Council will consider your application. Our employees will help you to prepare the documents and will provide consultancy on the subject. So this is the short, in short, the expectations from our residents. Certainly, all the companies are different, and there are companies which can be provided with advantages immediately, and the attraction of private investments and support measures. It's an important issue, and we have a selective approach towards. So the advantage I told about, and apart from the VAT 0%, profit tax 0%, if we build an innovative production site in the territory, will help you with imports as well at this stage. What else has been done since the 22 February? One of our priorities are drones.
Коллеги, наши контакты, если как.
So these are our contact details. If you're interested and want to join our projects and you have some potential residents, we'll be glad to answer all your questions. Welcome. Thank you very much. So Pavel is too modest because we already told that we work actively with the United Aircraft Building Corporation, with the Roscosmos Corporation, and the products of our products has been started to be promoted at the level of Roscosmos. We have a pool of solutions that has been manufactured and produced by the colleagues. And now we do everything to use it in the cooperation with Roscosmos. We have mentioned the priority fields we need to work in, but also spoke about the specific technologies and solutions needed by these corporations to solve their problems. And we're interested in support these teams and act as an interface between the big, heavy corporations, which are not always ready to let anybody in, but to help the companies which doing interesting things, to help them to approach these state companies and to find the solutions, because the space industry is a very complicated area, and the solutions can be numerous, because so those who build big aircrafts, they have problems with some of their components, and some of the residents could participate in this process and or participate in the creation of the terrestrial infrastructure. So there's one more presentation. Just put on the, not the last one, but the one before last slide. We are interested in building cooperation between the regions, and there is big demands from the government authorities and the structures which take part in implementing national projects. Next slide, please.
Вот, и у нас
And now we have been working on a very important initiative, and it still needs some approval, but this subject is very interesting. As I already said, there is a reference to the consumers, but concerning the freight carrying drones, and the heavy unmanned vehicles, we do not see any active suggestions which could be positioned as complex projects, including creation of a big aircraft, but that would include other issues related to the use of these machines with the development of the request for proposal, because if the request for proposal is not done in the right way, it will have the negative effects on the whole project, because as a result you'll got the non-optimal costs for transportation. That is why we have gathered a number of our colleagues from the Ryazan Oblast, who support the idea to develop and implement these projects, because it's the FESCA company which is ready to share the data, and at a certain stage will consider the possibility to become a freight operator. These are some of the residents who are dealing with the development of unmanned systems. And we also cooperate closely with UAC. We understand that the most important vistas in the creation of heavy machines, we actively ask advice from our colleagues, namely Mr. Korobov, and our cooperation is aimed at create together with these participants, and we also hope that with the participation of the Republic of Bashkortostan to implement this project, to make an important step to create a working and commercially efficient system of transportation of freights using the drone systems. So we've been working quite actively on it. We'll be grateful if you can discuss these issues with the colleagues from the Republic. We see a very important perspective. So that's all. We've finished our advertising minute. So Mr. Rechenko from the Unmanned Aircraft Systems has managed to join us. No? No, colleagues. Then, if you have some questions from the audience.
Я прошу прощения, очень плохо слышно. Но здесь микрофон, чтобы коллеги. Да.
This is the representative of a venture company.
А сейчас вам микрофон дадут.
Now you'll be provided with a mic. The question is, just to precise the financial model.
Так или иначе по описам, правильно? Вот, Макс, у тебя есть, нет, отчет? То есть я...
So, as far as I understand,
тайна за 7 печатями.
It's kind of a mystery.
Способ, как
Can you find a way, using those who produce the drones,
данные?
because we can use the data accumulated by them, because we have calculated the figures,
первые, которые в корзину пойдут, уже сделаны.
And we have already the
Вы говорите чешские. А это что это?
Беспилотников.
we have the engines for drones named DVS. These DVS engines, these are analogs to what?
Это финансово все просматривать.
So now we look at all these financial problems,
Именно вот нашего вот беспилотного
but in our we speak about our unmanned aircraft cluster. So colleagues,
Положительное решение.
if you have a positive decision, we are very interested to have this information.
А у вас вот лично есть этот ГТЛК отчет?
Do you have this information? I cannot answer right now. Let's meet after the end of this event and we'll discuss these problems.
Ну, я уверен, что если он не...
But I'm sure that if it's not a secret, a top secret, we'll try to find it.
Как сказал, достаточно активно.
But as I already said, we actively cooperate with the venture funds, and so we have the KPI, and then we look at our residents and select the relevant ones. And as far as the components is concerned, we have a number of partners which formulate some specific requests, the number of engines. So we have an expert panel on the drone systems, and they help us to establish it. So to establish the needs, and they know that the needs are sufficient to take the decisions and to ask the company to intensify their developments.
Поймем, о чем идет речь.
So let's understand what we are speaking about, and if it's interesting for you and for us, so let's try to find something in common. So I'm interested in it as an investor, because I'm interested to have this financial model.
Хорошо, коллеги, вот из Министерства по чрезвычайным
Dear colleagues from the Emercom, do you have any? Please give the mic to. Can you present your comments? Is it really a demand for this subject matter, and is the discussion that we had today was interesting for you, or probably you have some other important issues? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Let me introduce. I'm head of the 15th rescue team. First of all, I would like to thank the speakers and the participants of this meeting. So I was glad to see and to hear that these questions are raised and discussed, and I hope that it will continue. I know that the General Directorate in the Republic of Bashkortostan have 4 Phantom, 4 drones of the plane type, which deal with monitoring of the existing situation. We actively use these drones. We look from the heights of a bird's flight the situation, and it improves our work. And we do hope that this system will be used and we'll be able to use them in our activities. Are there any other people who wish to? So I think that we have such an exhaustive coverage that no questions emerge. Thank you, and we wish you a very fruitful continuation of the day. Thank you for joining us at this session. If you have any questions to us or to our colleagues, please you can transfer them through the organizers of the event. Thank you very much. So our event is closed.